There are 7.8 billion people on the planet. Roughly 83 million people are added to the world's population each year. According to United Nations predictions, we could reach 9.7 billion people by 2050 and over 11 billion by 2100. Population and climate change are inextricably linked. Humans have been using fossil fuels indiscriminately to power their increasingly mechanized lifestyles. The global climate disruption is the largest single threat to the ecology and biodiversity of the planet. The planet is reeling under the impact of air, water, and land pollution. The housing crisis, deepening poverty, rising unemployment, hunger, and undernourishment are all linked to unsustainable population growth. Countries around the world, including India, are trying to address the problem.
ये जनसंख्या विस्फोट हमारे लिए, हमारी आने वाली पीढ़ी के लिए अनेक नए संकट पैदा करता है। लेकिन ये बात मानना होगा कि हमारे देश में एक जागरूक वर्ग है जो इस बात को भली भांति समझता है।
Keeping in line with the government of India's initiative to stabilize population, Mobius Foundation's Project Akar is aimed at tackling the problem of India's booming population.
The Project Akar is on population. It is for stabilizing the population, which I think impacts practically every aspect of the planet and the sustainability of the planet.
The National Nodal Agency for the National
In a one-of-a-kind partnership, WION has teamed up with the Mobius Foundation to set in motion a year-long social campaign. The aim to address the problem of overpopulation and work towards creating a more sustainable population. This is Mission Sustainability, Population versus Planet.
There are more than 7.8 billion people on Earth right now. The world's population may be growing, but the natural resources are finite. The human race is fulfilling its material needs selfishly and unsustainably. The planet is bearing the brunt of our actions. Climate change, depleting natural resources, air, water and land pollution, hunger and poverty are all intrinsically linked to population growth. Hello, I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay and you're watching Mission Sustainability, Population versus Planet. This thought leadership conclave marks the beginning of a campaign that WION is launching in partnership with the Mobius Foundation. Over the next 2 hours, you'll hear policymakers, demographers, and environmentalists discuss and debate various issues related to the theme of population stabilization. But before we get to that, let me invite our chief guest, Dr. Vardhan, Union Minister for Science and Technology, Earth Sciences and Health and Family Welfare of India, to share his thoughts on the issue.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the onset, I would like to express my immense appreciation for WION and Z Media to launch this eminent year-long campaign called Mission Sustainability, Population versus Planet. I understand that this e-conclave marking the campaign's launch will host deliberations between numerous policy experts, demographic researchers, and academicians on socially important themes like population stabilization, empowering women and youth through education, among various others. It is indeed an honor for me to be invited to be a part of this crucial dialogue. Friends, as we are all aware, the world population has increased from 1 billion in the year 1800 to 7.8 billion today. More people require more resources, and as the population increases, the Earth's resources deplete. The population boom has been affecting the planet and the human race in many adverse ways. People in developing countries like India feel the impact of environmental problems more acutely. India is the second most populous country in the world, and according to some estimates, it is set to overtake China as the most populous country in the foreseeable future. Understanding the challenge posed by an expanding population, India has been making exhaustive efforts to encourage adoption of family planning. In fact, I would like to highlight that India was one of the first countries in the world to formulate a national family planning program way back in 1952. This program was later expanded to cover maternal and child health, as well as adolescent health and nutrition. Since then, India has taken giant strides in spreading awareness and enhancing adoption of family planning techniques, while also ensuring healthier lives for its citizens. Let me tell you that even though India's population has increased from 36 crore in 1951 to 121.02 crore in 2011, the country has witnessed significant decline in both fertility and mortality. The crude birth rate, which was recorded at 40.8 per 1000 in 1951, has declined to 20.0 in 2018. Total fertility rate has declined from 6.0 in 1951 to 2.2 in 2015-16. Death rate in India has declined from 7 in 2012 to 6.2 in 2018. India has also been an important and active member of Family Planning 2020 Partnership, advancing collaborative efforts to address the policy, financing, delivery, and socio-cultural barriers to women accessing contraceptive information, services, and supplies. The alliance, which is now entering its next phase, provided an impetus to our national agenda of protecting mothers and children through improving access to family planning choices. You will be pleased to note, from the time of the partnership's initiation in 2012, India added more than 1.5 crore additional users for modern contraceptives, thereby increasing the modern contraceptive use to 55%. During this short span of time, India added 2 new contraceptives, namely the injectable MPA and centromine in the national contraceptive basket. The total allocation for family planning during this period was to the tune of $3 billion. I am proud to state that India not only achieved its committed targets under the partnership, but also exceeded them. In 2016, we launched the ambitious and overarching Mission Parivar Vikas to further intensify our efforts. In line with the vision of Digital India, family planning, logistics management, and information system was developed for ensuring last mile availability of the contraceptives. A holistic media campaign covered all aspects of information, education, and communication, as well as behavior change communication, and this is how demand generation was achieved. Strengthening post-pregnancy contraception with more than 10 million pregnant women benefiting through PPI-UCD and improving quality remained the central tenets of the program. As a result of our persistent efforts on 3 key fronts of supplies, services, and information, India was able to provide modern contraceptive access to 14.2 crore beneficiaries and thus averting 5.6 crore unintended pregnancies, 18.6 lakh unsafe abortions, and 30,000 maternal deaths in 2019. The recent National Family Health Survey 5 also substantiates the effort, as 20 out of 22 states surveyed so far have shown an increase in modern contraceptive use and 21 showing a decline in unmet needs for contraception. In what is a remarkable achievement, India is on the verge of achieving the replacement total fertility rate, with 28 out of 36 states and UTs having already achieved the replacement total fertility rate of 2.1. In fact, in the NFHS 5 survey, results for which are available for 22 first phase states, 19 of these have shown a decline in fertility. Population projection for India and states 2011 to 2036, released in July 2020, indicates that the total fertility rate is expected to decline from 2.37 during 2011 to 2015 to 1.73 during 2031-35. Friends, the overall results depict a success story which was driven by political will and strengthened by improved governance, provision of finances, meticulous planning, implementation, and effective monitoring and learnings. India is now in a phase of demographic transition with a substantial percentage of youth population. The youth population in the age group of 15 to 24 years is projected to decline from 233 million in 2011 to 227 million in 2036. However, the proportion of the working age population is expected to increase from 61% in 2011 to 65% in 2036. India is adding 12 million people to the working age population each year. The government, under the exemplary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, is making tireless efforts to help our youth fulfill their potential, meet all their aspirations, while contributing to the nation's progress. Ours is a government committed to delivering a prosperous new India where no one is left behind. The Atmanirbhar Bharat of our dreams will be built on the shoulders of empowered youth. Our various policy interventions like National Education Policy, Science, Technology and Innovation Policy, as well as programs like Startup India, Fit India, Eat Right India, and many other stand testimony to our resolve to facilitate holistic growth of our youth, ultimately leading to India's rise as a Vishwa Guru. Friends, India is geared to continue to rationally leverage its youth for stabilization of population by strengthening family planning services and improving girls' education while increasing female workforce participation. All of us very well acknowledge that women's health and empowerment impact the entire nation. All the schemes and strategies initiated by the government aimed the concept of women's empowerment. Over 9 lakh ASHA workers in the country are not only the drivers of health, but also the face of the empowered rural women who are making a difference every day in the community they work in and serve. Girls' education serves not only as an indicator for development, but also an instrument for promoting fertility decline. The government is now ensuring inclusive growth for all through our Honorable Prime Minister's ambitious aspirational districts program, where health, nutrition and education forms important pillars. India made remarkable progress in the past by reducing teenage marriages from 47% to 26.8% and teenage fertility from 16% to 7%. It is evident that the impact of the interventions is now beginning to yield dividends. Today, India is knocking at the door of achieving replacement level fertility and has made remarkable improvement in reducing maternal and child mortality. With commitment and perseverance, India can achieve the goal of population stabilization and advancing the development goals of the country. I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to address this learned gathering. My best wishes for your forthcoming deliberations and to WION for a successful campaign on this very critical issue.
Thank you, Dr. Harshvardhan, for sharing your thoughts and perspectives with us on India's population issues. It was an honor to have you with us today. Let us now move towards the first discussion on sustaining the balance between population and our planet.
The world's population continues to grow rapidly, surpassing the capacity of our planet to support it. Studies show that today more than 7.8 billion of us humans inhabit this planet. More people require more resources, which means that as the population increases, the Earth's resources deplete. Humans have been stripping the planet to accommodate rising population numbers. The result of this depletion is deforestation, increased greenhouse gases, climate change, poor air quality, and even water scarcity. But is there a solution? Is it even possible to strike a balance between people, development and the planet? Hello, I'm Akanksha Swaroop and I welcome you to Mission Sustainability, Population versus Planet. Joining us today on our panel to discuss this burning issue are Mr. Rameshwar Prasad Gupta, he's Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Dr. Madhavan Nair Rajivan, Secretary of Ministry of Earth Sciences, and even Mr. Pradeep Burman, who's the chairman of Mobius Foundation, a foundation that is working towards sustainability. I welcome all of our panelists today. Thank you so much for joining our discussion today. Mr. Burman, let me begin with you. You're a sworn environmentalist and a crusader of sustainability. What are the biggest sustainability challenges we are facing today, and how are they linked to overpopulation?
If I was to pick two out of the many challenges that we are facing, one is climate change and the other is the air pollution. The reason that we look at air pollution is because our children are suffering. They are suffering from asthma, lung ailments, etc. So that is immediately apparent. But there are others which are behind, which are the cause of this is the climate change. So all of them will be apparent in no time. It is linked to population because the greater amount of population means greater amount of gases, and that is leading to climate change. And then this is a step down effect which carries on and on. And this is the trouble of overpopulation.
Right. Dr. Rajivan, if I may take my next question from you, what is the biggest impact of climate change in India?
The temperature over the country has risen about 0.8 degree for last 100 years. Which is the same rate of global warming rate. And but monsoon, as far as monsoon is our bread and butter. And as far as monsoon rainfall is concerned, there's not much change. So monsoon is a very robust system. But within the monsoon season, we see appreciable changes in terms of daily rainfall activity. So we do now get more and more intense rainfall activities, events, the heavy rainfall events, which can lead to flash floods and large-scale urban floods, etc. And the third thing is in between the monsoon season, the so-called dry spells, the frequency of dry spells as well as the duration of the dry spell also is increasing, which is not really good for agriculture. And as far as heat waves are concerned, as you know, the heat waves are also can affect our health. And heat wave frequency, duration, and intensity also is increasing. And the last one is the tropical cyclone. The frequency may not be changing, but when a cyclone forms, it is more likely to intensify into a very, very severe cyclonic storm. So intensity of tropical cyclone is increasing. And of course, we all know that sea level over the whole globe, sea level is rising. Over the Indian region, it's almost 3 millimeter per year, the sea level is rising. And because of that, coastal erosion is happening almost 30% of our Indian coast.
Right. Fair enough. I completely agree with you as far as coastal erosion is also concerned. Mr. Gupta, let me also come to you. Would you agree that overpopulation is the real reason for global warming? Please share your thoughts with us.
See, I will not say that overpopulation is the real reason for global warming. Overpopulation will become a problem and a cause for the global warming only when our lifestyle is such, our consumption pattern is such that we are over exploiting the resources and we are not recycling it. So in my view, it's the play between the population, the kind of lifestyle which we have, and the kind of recycling of the resources we are doing rather than exploiting the original natural resources. And in this context only, our Honorable Prime Minister, he has given a call for a sustainable lifestyle. Now, sustainable lifestyle will depend the kind of population number which we are having and the lifestyle which we are having. If we are having a more population, that means our lifestyle will have to be such that we do with the limited resources which are available and recycle more and more resources.
Dr. Rajivan, the global consumption of fossil fuels, the primary source of CO2 emissions, has gone up by 78% in the last 3 decades itself. Could you explain the impact of this?
Yeah, carbon dioxide, as all of us know, that it's greenhouse gas, and last many years, especially after the Industrial Revolution, we have been burning more fossil fuels, especially carbon dioxide. And due to increase in carbon dioxide, due to greenhouse effect, the global warming is happening. And so there is a lot of pressure on, especially from the UN to all the nations, to cut down the fossil fuel emissions and consumption and move more to the new and renewable or green energy. And India is really, I'm very happy to see that with Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we have committed more and more renewable energy now, and the progress is much faster than what we really committed. Carbon dioxide is a uniformly distributed gas. So only one particular country cannot be blamed. All of us should take, including developed countries like US, UK, European Union, Australia, all those countries should own it, and they should assume that even though the population number is small, but because of just now they're talking about lifestyle, really lifestyle makes big difference. So the overall, all the countries should make a commitment. We should not say it is not my job, it is your job.
Absolutely agree with you. It is a global effort that has to come from all the countries. Mr. Gupta, talking about the water scarcity issue in India, more than 62 billion litres of untreated waste flows into the Indian rivers. We know that the country's booming population and rapidly expanding urban areas have exacted a huge toll on its rivers. We know a lot is already being done, but is it enough?
Well, let me say that we are a water-starved country. Definitely, in comparison to the global standard, our per capita availability itself is shrinking as our population increases. We generate in urban India roughly about 75,000 million litres of sewage waste per day. Our capacity of treating the sewage is roughly about 30,000 million litres per day or so, and actual operations, they are for roughly about 20,000 million litre water per day, which out of the sewage which we are treating. So this capacity has been actually increasing more rapidly than the sewage water which we are generating. So we hope in the near future we will be able to cover a lot of more sewage water. We will be treating it and reusing it.
Right. I'm glad that the government has come up with programs which are much needed. Mr. Burman, let me take my next question from you. The world appears to be divided on the issue of climate change. While some believe that the effects will be sudden and cataclysmic, skeptics simply scoff at it. They think it is fear-mongering. What would you say to the non-believers?
Now more and more people, 90% of all the scientists believe in climate change, and therefore I don't think we need to really worry about the 10% which is skeptical about the climate change. I think it is more important the governments of all countries take a strong stand on climate change and do something.
Absolutely. An urgent effort is needed as far as the global community is concerned, which has been very rightly pointed out by you. Dr. Rajivan, people in developing countries tend to feel the impacts of environmental problems more acutely. How is the population crisis affecting India particularly in terms of ecological changes?
When we go for climate change negotiations with the UN bodies, so they always argue that your total population is much more. So even though your per capita emission is much less, but when you multiply by the total number of population, the total emission, what really makes the effect of the global warming is the total emission. So the climate understands only how much carbon dioxide is emitted. They don't understand how many people are living in a particular country. So it's really a matter that we should not assume that the population is not really affecting climate change. The population really will affect the climate change because we need more and more resources. More and more resources means more greenhouse emissions. And even though the lifestyle is not as big as US or Europe, but definitely the population increase will have an adverse effect on our environment and sustainable development. That's what I would like to say.
Right. Mr. Berman, would you like to react to what we just heard right now?
Well, I think it has been rightly pointed out about the lifestyle and link to the population. If we have a lifestyle like the United States, then our population cannot take it. However, when we look at the total population, that means that we cannot improve our lifestyle without affecting the planet. And therefore, we link immediately that the population itself should be limited. We have already done something in Kerala that it is being limited. But population problem is a much longer term problem and a longer term solution. So nothing can be done before 100 years. So within 60 years only you can control some population, and within 100 years you'll be able to control. So it's a much longer solution, and we ought to look at the longer term aspect of the whole thing.
It is indeed a long-term solution. Of course, we'll have to work at it. Having said that, Mr. Berman, the buzzword these days is clean energy, green energy. But if the world's population is not stabilized, can clean energy or green energy alone be effective?
Well, I would say partly, yes. Clean energy, once we do it, it will have a great effect on global warming and climate change. And I can tell you that a country like Germany, which is already having 70% of its energy, is from renewable sources. And that's what we should be working on as a first step towards affecting climate change.
Mr. Gupta, you just heard what Mr. Berman had to say. Would you like to react to his comments?
Now, renewable energy, 175 gigawatt we are going to achieve in 2022. That's what the Prime Minister has said, and we are very well going to achieve it. 40% of the total installed capacity coming from renewable by 2030. There again we are going to overachieve it. Honorable Prime Minister had said that when we are in the 100th year of our independence, that is in 2047, we will be fulfilling and we will be compliant with what globe wants, the world wants from us.
On that note, let me also get in a quick reaction from Dr. Rajivan. Dr. Rajivan, what do you have to say about the importance and significance of clean and green energy?
I fully agree with him that India should really move on to more and more clean energy, green energy, and India, as he correctly said, that India's commitment is very strong, and the progress is also much faster than what we have committed. And so we should we should cut down the fossil fuel as much as possible and move to, and in India there is a lot of scope in terms of solar as well as wind. there's a lot of scope and a lot of potential. I think we should achieve that kind of potential, and we should move more and more clean and green energy. That's a commitment we should make.
Mr. Gupta, I come back to you. Many animals are territorial and tend to travel miles in order to establish their own territories, ending up in conflicts with humans. Please share your thoughts on how the government plans to increase or expand natural habitats for the peaceful dwelling of wildlife.
Well, let me say the increased man-animal conflict, that is because what we have done in the conservation. Our tiger population has increased to almost about 3,000. Leopard population is increasing. There are many other conservation measures for marine dolphins, elephant, and many other species which are on. Now, with the results of this, it is very natural that once our conservation efforts they are a success, then naturally the wild animals, they are going to move out of their habitat from the protected areas and sometime come into conflict with the nearby habitations. Whenever there is there are cases of this, there are government policies, the people are monetarily compensated. They are also involved in the protection and the conservation efforts in a big way, and there are more measures which will be coming into it. Our efforts are that these people who are bearing the brunt of the man-animal confrontation, they should also become part of the conservation and they should benefit from it. So there are very large number of measures which have been taken to involve these people in the conservation efforts. So basically it's a sort of managing that man-animal conflict. This is there, this will remain, but it's a happy outcome of our conservation efforts.
Right. Let's also talk about the Earth's biodiversity. Now, Mr. Berman, if I may take this question from you, in a layperson's language, could you explain the impact of rapid human population growth on the Earth's biodiversity? Why is it alarming?
The first reason I would say is the space which is being taken up by human beings is causing 1 million species a year to die out. Now, what does that mean? One species can die out. But it upsets the ecological balance. And when the ecological balance is upset, then there are a whole lot of things which we cannot predict that will happen. When species die out, then other species take over. And then the human species is generating so much waste. How do we take care of the waste? So there are a whole lot of other issues which come with the population increase and the biodiversity being lost. We don't realize it right away, but over a period of time, the biodiversity causes much more problems than we envisaged earlier.
Dr. Rajivan, please do share your thoughts with us.
Yes, that is true. Climate change also can add a new dimension to biodiversity because of the warming. But the global warming, for example, can really affect the biodiversity, and many species can die, and many species can really go away.
I'd also like to go across to Mr. Berman for my next question. Mr. Berman, now when it was adopted in 2015, the Paris Agreement represented hope, a triumph in diplomacy. How successful would you say this has been?
I would say it's partly been successful, but it's a very good direction which the Paris Agreement took. With the US pulling out, it appeared that it's going to fail. But now with the new government in the US, it is back on track. But what I want to emphasize is that urgency on the Paris Agreement and the parameters which it set out that we should maintain is not being shown. The urgency to be shown and to actually achieve it. What scientists have shown is that we are actually behind our targets, what we should achieve now. And if we don't increase the targets, then we'll not be able to achieve the targets in 2030 as was proposed. So it is necessary for people like Greta Thunberg to bring this to our attention at the World Economic Forum meets, that we are not doing enough for the next generation to survive.
Right. Well said, Mr. Berman. I'd also like to take a reaction from Dr. Rajivan. Dr. Rajivan, please share your thoughts with us.
As he has rightly pointed out, as we all countries have committed, but then USA has backed out, and it is good to see that US is coming back to Paris Agreement. There is a slow progress. The progress is not as much we wanted, and any further delay will really cause more and more problems in terms of global warming commitments. So I think India, as a responsible country, should really raise this issue in big meetings and big opportunity wherever it happens.
Right, fair enough. Mr. Gupta, you just heard what Dr. Rajivan had to say. He says that this is a huge concern for not just India, for the entire world. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with both of them. It's a serious issue and serious action is required. And India is committed not only for its own part, but also we would like to see that everybody contributes to it and contributes according to their capabilities and their respective responsibilities. Hopefully the next COP26 that will lay out a very concrete pathway for achieving it. It is simply, we think, our view is that it is not enough that we simply declare some net zero carbon emission targets, because the pathway which you take to reach that net zero will be very important. Right. It's the stock of carbon which we are going to add to the atmosphere which is relevant, not that finally we will be zero in between how much you add. That is very relevant, and that's what our concern is. That's what we will be sharing with the international community, that don't just declare the zero emission, but declare how much space you are going to take and portion it in a fair manner.
Right, now before we end the session, I would like to ask all of you this. It is a fact that if left unchecked, population growth will eventually cause an environmental catastrophe. Can this catastrophe be averted? Many of us living in urban cities are watching our children struggle to breathe in polluted air. But can we actually leave a better, more sustainable, more beautiful world for our future generations? Let me have a quick closing thoughts from all three of you. Mr. Berman, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I think certainly we can do this, and I'd like to emphasize what are some of the steps that we should take. Our Mobius Foundation is already on that. Education is the key, and creating climate warriors is the key to averting a disaster on climate change. So education, I'm creating World Environment School, which will create these warriors. Education is also the key for population. As you can see, that Kerala population is no longer increasing because all of them are fully educated. And therefore, we can certainly avert this disaster by education. Is a good start.
Right. Dr. Rajivan, please go ahead and share your thoughts.
That is true. Yes. Actually, what you said is correct, and it is possible, and it's doable, and we should do it. And already we are showing our commitment, and this commitment should really continue. And we should have a very, very clean environment in the coming years may not be for us, but at least for our daughters, our children, and grandchildren. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Gupta, your thoughts?
If we want to have a good lifestyle for our future generations, then population control is the need of the hour, and we cannot run away from it.
Right. Well said, Mr. Gupta. Population control is the need of the hour, and we cannot run away from it. With this, we come to the end of an interesting and a thought-provoking discussion with our panelists on sustaining a balance between the population and our planet. I would like to thank all the panelists for being with us today and sharing their precious perspectives. There is much more to come on the other side of the break. 2 more engaging panel discussions on population stabilization. Coming up next is an exclusive one-on-one conversation with Mr. Pradeep Berman. Stay tuned to World is Fun.
WION now available in the United States. Download the app now. WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, Russia, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
From the world's most volatile region, conflicts over faith and boundaries. Stories of death, destruction, despair, and hope. WION brings you to the heart of the action. Incisive analysis, unrivaled perspective, and exclusive ground reports. Watch West Asia Post every Friday, 8:30 p.m. IST with me, Radi Francis. Only on WION. World is one.
I was born in Afghanistan. The Soviet invasion forced my family to migrate to Pakistan before moving to the United States. South Asia is home. Here, in the streets, on platforms like these, I am most comfortable. I'm in the studios of WION to bring to you the region's heartbeat. On South Asia Diary, you will hear voices from the world's most underreported region. We will talk culture, we will talk politics, we will talk creative innovations. This is South Asia, home to 1.9 billion people. And this is South Asia Diary with me, Mariam Wardak. Every Monday, 8:30 p.m. IST. On WION, World is One. I was born in Afghanistan. The Soviet invasion forced my family to migrate to Pakistan before moving to the United States. South Asia is home. Here, in the streets, on platforms like these, I am most comfortable. I'm in the studios of WION to bring to you the region's heartbeat. On South Asia Diary, you will hear voices from the world's most underreported region. We will talk culture, we will talk politics, we will talk creative innovations. This is South Asia, home to 1.9 billion people. And this is South Asia Diary with me, Mariam Wardak. Every Monday, 8:30 p.m. IST. On WION, World is One.
The November election is a crucial test for the country's first democratic government. Myanmar could be on the verge of a coup. The country's powerful military generals are threatening to take action against what they call a fraudulent election. Myanmar's de facto leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, is in detention. Our response team was flooded with messages. The coup has destroyed our youth's dreams and future. We want democracy and want our country to develop. #Save Myanmar. Welcome back. You're watching Mission Sustainability, Population versus Planet. Joining us in the studio again is Mr. Pradeep Burman, Chairman of the Mobius Foundation. Mr. Burman, good to have you back. You're the chairperson of the Mobius Foundation. Can you tell us a little more about the mission of this foundation and why it's so important to have initiatives like this in today's world?
Well, I can tell you that the planet is dying. It is for the survival of the planet that I thought I'd dedicate the rest of my life to revive the planet in whatever way that I could. There were two main aspects which I took. One was for education, for the environment, and the other was for the population stability, which I thought were the two main areas which I was interested in that could make a difference to the future generations that come. This we divided into three areas. Project Akar is on population. It is for stabilizing the population, which I think impacts practically every aspect of the planet and the sustainability of the planet. We are working in two districts in UP, namely Barabanki and Bharich, which have the very high fertility rates, TFR is known as, and we are creating awareness amongst the newly married people, among the young people who are going to get married. There's the primary health centers are there, where we use the contraceptives and distribute the contraceptives to the young couple. We've also won an award for that, which is known as Dampati #1, which we got the award for the best film towards Family Planning Association. Now, Project WES is called the World Environment School. This I intend to set up in the region of Kurg, which is amongst the sensitive Western Ghats. And like the title says, it will be the first of its kind, the World Environment School, in which the students will have a practical experience in sustainability issues. Let me just give you an example, like gobar gas, like turning compost from gobar and doing it, looking after nature, in other words, having your own garden patch. The GAV is the Gyanananda Vidyalaya, which is a school in the very rural areas, in the backward areas, that we are trying to bring awareness about the environment and the dangers of the future of the next generation. So all these three aspects we have formed to try and do something by the Mobius Foundation.
Right. The world's population is expected to grow by 2 billion people, and the numbers are quite interesting in the next 3 decades, from 7.8 billion to 9.7 billion in 2020. And the life expectancy is also increased. Humans are living longer now than ever before. The increase has been by 6 years, more than 6 years, between 2000 and 2019, from 66.8 years in 2000 to 73.4 years in 2019. While this is good news for humans, it does put a lot of pressure on Earth. How do we balance the two?
I would say the only two solutions which we can implement right away. One is recycling. We have to recycle everything. The second most important thing is renewable energy. We have to have 100% of the energy that we use will come from renewable sources. If you can do these two things, I think the problem is solved.
Yes, that would be ideal, but analysts are also predicting a steady decline in global population in the next century. And again, the trends are interesting. Countries like Japan and Italy are looking to increase their birth rates. In 2015, the Chinese government was forced to end its controversial one-child policy after the birth rates declined. And India is already witnessing a significant decline in total fertility rate over the past 70 years. We don't even have policies like the one-child policy. Do you believe that India is on the right track when it comes to a population strategy, if we have one?
I would say partly yes, because first we have to stabilize the population. In the end, we have to reduce the population. The population of India during independence was 350 million. Today it's 1.3 billion. And that's 4 times. The land hasn't increased, the water hasn't increased, but there are 4 times as many people to inhabit the same area, the habitat, the same number of jobs. Maybe the jobs have increased, but it puts a pressure on everything.
Right. The Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, spoke about the need for population control in his Independence Day speech in 2019, and he also said that smaller families are observing a form of patriotism. The idea of a population control bill has been controversial. What is your position on that? Do you think that we should have a law to check the exponential growth of population?
I think definitely a law or coercion would absolutely be the wrong way of approaching the whole thing. The fact that the PM has taken notice of this is a very, very big thing as far as I'm concerned, because if he starts something like the Swachh mission, which has been quite successful, then this will become a great success. So I'm very glad that this has been taken. But we have to fill in the gaps, which is what Mobius is trying to do, is to take it to the villages where the TFR rate is high, to supply the contraceptives, which I found is you're not able to supply, and that's one of the reasons for the overpopulation. So some of the gaps have been filled, and the NGOs will have to need to fill that. The government cannot do everything. It can inspire people to do. And that I hope Mr. Modi is already doing, and he will continue to do that.
Right. And after having engaged with you and your team for all this while, we can say that your efforts are not half-hearted, sir. And we at WION are very happy and excited to partner with the Mobius Foundation for Mission Sustainability, Population versus Planet. What I want you to tell our viewers is, what do you hope to achieve through this campaign?
I think it's impossible for me to succeed to reverse everything or to save what I'm trying to save. But in whatever effort I make, I hope others will emulate. And this is one of the things that I'm doing, is try and garner the youth and get the youth to do the projects, which we've done in the last season. And we've given a prize to the youth for sustainability projects. So once the youth takes it up and the youth is energized to do this, then certainly we can do a lot, because many hands will make less work.
Thank you very much for your insights, Mr. Vardhan. It was a pleasure speaking to you, and all the very best to you.
Thank you very much.
Like the rest of the world, India too is intensely debating the topic of population control. Prime Minister Narendra Modi brought the debate back to the discussion table in 2019 after he used the term population explosion in his Independence Day speech and even equated population control to patriotism. However, the statistics are alarming. According to a United Nations report, India is projected to overtake China as the world's most populous country by 2027. So the question is, what are the measures that are being implemented and what more needs to be done? In this session, we are being joined by our esteemed panelists who will be sharing their insights on population stabilization, the roadmap. So let me now begin by introducing our guests. Shailaja Chandra, former secretary at the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. She is also a prolific writer and an independent policy analyst with more than 45 years of experience in public administration. Also joining me is Dr. Ram Bhuj, the CEO of the Mobius Foundation. He has 40 years of experience in the field of environment science, ecology, biodiversity, disaster management, climate change, and has worked with various academic and development organizations and with the United Nations. I also welcome Poonam Mutreja, currently the Executive Director of the Population Foundation of India. Also joining us is Manu Gaur. As an activist for various social causes, Mr. Gaur drafted the first ever population control policy. He is currently the president of the Taxpayers Association of Bharat. A very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us on this unique campaign. Now, I'd like to begin our discussion with you, Dr. Bhuj. India is the second most populous country in the world, contributing to nearly 17.5% of the global population. Could you set the context for this and tell us how the situation stands as of now with respect to population stabilization?
Thank you very much, Priyanka, and a very warm welcome to my fellow panelists, Dr. Shailaja Chandra, Poonamji, and Manu Gaur. In fact, we are very proud to have partnered with WION to launch this mission sustainability, which is very timely. And particularly, we have been working in the field of population for over 5 years now. The problem that, of course, you already underlined that India will overtake China by 2027 as per the latest UN report. And of course, we have almost 1/3 of the land mass than that of the China. And what are the issues? How we are going to tackle this? Of course, there are a lot of issues related to, like a lot of people are, there are figures which say that India is already on the population stabilization path. There is already fertility rate decline in many states of the country, but still what population rising, which is, we can call it as a momentum, the population momentum. I would just like to mention that let us focus more on the sustainability issues vis-a-vis population. That is why this topic of this whole campaign is population versus planet. This divide, the inequality, both in the gender and the societies, communities, all those inequalities, resilience, and sustainability, how we can take forward these issues. That is the crux of this whole debate on population sustainability.
Absolutely, Dr. Buj, very well said. Now, coming to you, Ms. Chandra, please share your thoughts on India's population size and tell us, are family planning schemes lacking in any respect with respect to the government's initiative?
I think there is almost an assumption that we have a huge population problem. One must see population in terms of the total fertility rate. It should be well known that except for Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, we have 1.7, 1.8 as our total fertility rate, which means on an average, a woman is producing less than 2 children during her reproductive years. We have, in fact, a huge population dividend. When all other countries are aging, Japan, the West, we are having a huge, you might say, young population who would be able to be a wonderful workforce if only they were educated and healthy. Population per se is not an issue, but in some of the states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, which have some time to go before they reach the 2.1 fertility rate, there you have districts, and I'm very glad Mobius Foundation picked on Barej and Barabanki. You see, if you pick on the ones where the TFR is very high, then you can focus and target families which need family planning advice, family planning, I'd say contraceptives. Mm-hmm. And you'll be very glad to know that the latest NFHS figures, the NFHS 5, it doesn't cover UP, but it does cover Bihar and other states. Definitely not only has contraceptive use gone up, it also shows that there is an interest in trying to raise the couple protection rate. So that is a very good sign. The only thing that is worrisome is female sterilization in India is unfortunately the only way, practically the only way, which is called a modern method of contraception.
Coming to you, Ms. Matreja, please weigh in and react to what Ms. Chandra just said. And what does India need to do to work towards this goal of this very ambitious goal of sustainable population stabilization?
I have to say that I agree with every word and every statement made by Shailaja ji, and it's very comprehensive and it reflects not just the reality but the data. We need to increase investments to provide quality family planning services to women and men of reproductive age. Our population is going to increase and overtake China and then further increase, and the decline will begin again in 2100 years. Currently, our budgetary allocation for family planning is 4% of the national health budget. this should be significantly increased, and sadly it got decreased in the last budget.
Right.
We did a study called Cost of Inaction, which reveals that adequate investments in family planning over the next 15 years can lead to an additional 13% increase in India's GDP, prevent 1.2 million maternal deaths, 2.9 million infant deaths, and avert more than 206 million abortions. So investing in human capital is the key to achieve these outcomes. The Prime Minister, as you said, talked about creating awareness on family planning.
Right.
And we need to create awareness. We need to change social norms, change the behavior of people, have men more engaged. There is enough for us to do positively.
Now over to you, Mr. Gore. Please share a few insights on the policy. Once in effect, how could this policy help in stabilizing the population of India?
इस देश को एक रेस्पॉन्सिबल पेरेंटहुड एक्ट की जरूरत है जो कि ये बता सके इस देश के लोगों को कि अगर आप स्मॉल फैमिली नॉर्म्स को पूरा फॉलो करेंगे तो उसमें आपको क्या-क्या बेनिफिट्स, क्या-क्या incentives दिए जाएंगे.
Dr. Butch, do you think a hardcore population law, which is well written, enabling this goal of population stabilization, will be a stepping stone in meeting this ambitious goal?
We are on the right track as far as population stabilization is there. Many states had earlier certain legislations to regulate the family size and honor the couple's right to decide on the size of their families and the means what they want to adopt. Again, that was promoting family planning, all those legislations, while limiting the size of the family. India is also bound by many international conventions, particularly the International Conference on Population and Development in Cairo. And India is one of the signatories to the declaration. And as per that declaration also, we cannot have these coercive measures. And probably all those incentives and promotions that are being applied, of course, there should be more finances, there should be more means, more counseling, more education, and spending on social and environmental sustainability issues.
I'll just like Ms. Chandra to weigh in at this moment. Now, according to studies, India's total fertility rate has been on a constant decline from 2017 to 2021, with the highest fall of 1.37% in 2018 from 2017. So, Ms. Chandra, do you think that people are making themselves more aware of the overpopulation situation, moving towards a stabilization?
Oh, yes, without a doubt, because we have a large base, and that is because of past, you might say, momentum. Those people are going to have their 2 children. Some are opting for just 1, but 2 you really cannot deny them, and they are well within that. I would only say that the bigger picture of population must be addressed, and quickly. Once I read that the government might even think of bringing a law which would be able to push up the age of marriage for girls from 18 to 20. That would have a huge effect, because the people who are going in for early marriages and quickly having 2 children, 3 children in quick succession would be the ones who would be brought under that law. So that law is absolutely in order, and it will certainly protect women from having to have unwanted pregnancies very early when their body is not even ready for anything. They're so anemic themselves. That's one. Second thing that I would definitely say in this context is you need to track families, and we have done it at the time of COVID. We have done it for antenatal care through the ASHAs and for under the NRHM. So India has tremendous experience. If one tracked the families at risk in every village, which is not impossible, the panchayats can be given this kind of a task and incentivized to keep track of families at risk, keep them under a kind of, you might say, targeted vision that their children must be born healthy, spaced apart. I'm sure that we can succeed. That is the more positive way of being able to stabilize the populations that need this kind of support.
Now, Ms. Mutreja, we've heard you say earlier that India does not need to have a fear of population boom. Can you explain that statement?
I will go by the data of the government and NFHS, and the total fertility rate is down substantially. It's come down to 2.2. So from 3.2 in 2000, when the National Population Policy was adopted, the Family Welfare Program is voluntary in nature. And as far as fertility, even the NFHS 5 data goes, except Bihar, in fact, and Manipur, Meghalaya to a smaller extent, the total fertility rate is 2.1 or less. Right. Implying that most states have attained fertility, replacement level of fertility. In every state, there is an HMIS. We know how many sterilizations are taking place, how many condoms are being used. Fortunately, the Indian government may not invest enough money, but it is investing enough in data collection.
Mr. Go, do you think an increase in awareness levels among the population, especially the youth, is leading to a control in the population to a certain extent?
Of course, awareness means a lot, and awareness के साथ-साथ भी एक चीज बहुत जरूरी है, incentive based population policy, proper population policy. Limited taxpayers हैं और इतनी बड़ी population को उन्हें feed करना है, तो इसीलिए जो freebies बांटे जाते हैं, उन सारी चीजों को देखते हुए अगर आप उस पैसे को वेस्ट करने की जगह अगर आप उस पैसे का प्रॉपर यूज करें उन लोगों के ऊपर जो कि स्मॉल फैमिली नॉर्म्स को फॉलो करें, जो कि रेस्पॉन्सिबल पेरेंटिंग को फॉलो करें, जो कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी ने 15 अगस्त 2019 को एड्रेस भी किया था। और जहां तक राइट्स की बात है, रिप्रोडक्टिव राइट्स, अगर हम फ्रीनेस की बात करें, हमारे देश में ये सबको पता है कि हमारे देश में महिलाओं को रिप्रोडक्टिव राइट्स के नाम पर कुछ नहीं मिलता। वो अपने रिप्रोडक्टिव राइट्स को एंजॉय कर ही नहीं सकती। उनके अदर फैमिली मेंबर्स डिसाइड करते हैं कि उन्हें कितने बच्चों को जन्म देना है। अगर हम प्रॉपर इंसेंटिव बेस्ड पॉपुलेशन पॉलिसी लेकर आते हैं तो उसके लिए बहुत अच्छा होगा, ये महिलाओं के लिए बहुत अच्छा होगा।
Right. Now coming back to you, Dr. Bhuj, based on the 5 P's, that is people, planet, prosperity, peace and partnership of this sustainability development goal, how can we combat the adverse effects of overpopulation on the environment, climate and other depleting natural resources, of course? Very quickly, Dr. Bhuj.
5 P's, which is the foundation of SDGs, the people, planet, prosperity, partnership and peace. People, of course, it's closely related to the human beings, to the population, and it's a basically unfinished agenda of Millennium Development Goals, removing poverty, health, education, water, all these provisions. This is what people-based and directly impacts population. The other one is planet, and goals 13 to 15, these are related to the climate change, consumption patterns, biodiversity, all these, and urbanization. These are impacting because the population as well as the population impacting these goals. So what we call as Great Reset, and of course as the making extra effort towards achievement all these 5 P's and sustainability is the key to population stabilization.
Ms. Chandra, please share your thoughts on the schemes introduced by the Indian government to combat this issue.
First, let me go to Prerana. Prerana is a wonderful scheme which says anyone below the poverty line, and those are identified, have a child after 19, they would be given a post office savings certificate which would be encashable after 7 years, 7,000 rupees if it's a girl baby, and 5,000 if it's a boy baby. Second scheme which was wonderful was Santushti, which is that you encourage male sterilization, and if so many cases are done, well, the compensation that Jansankhya would give for that would be X amount. Now, Santushti, according to the National Health Policy 2017, we were to aim for 5% of male sterilization. Do you know that the latest NFHS figures and even the previous 4 show that it is not even 0.5%? This is unacceptable. I mean, if you keep talking about women's reproductive reproductive rights. How can men do this? And there are important people like police commissioners and all who have had this vasectomy and gone public to say, I have not suffered in any way in terms of my sexual life. And the third initiative, which was really wonderful, was we set up a call center, a BPO, not a helpline. And we had 10 agents male and 10 agents women sitting in the Mohan Industrial Estate. And they were supervised by a gynecologist. They had a monitor and a drop-down list, and calls would come on a toll-free line from Purnia, Shravasti, that really, you might say, districts which are very, very low in the ranking. And they would call and ask questions about family planning in the privacy of their homes and get free advice on what is to be done, supervised by a gynecologist, but answered by people who had done zoology, botany, and were trained at the Maulana Azad Medical College.
Ms. Chandra, thank you for that. Very well said. And I think women's reproductive rights are central to this ambitious goal. Coming to you, Ms. Matreja, tell us, do you think the government schemes, the family planning schemes and otherwise, have been successful in meeting this goal?
Yes, I believe so, but they need to do more. There are new schemes in place. For instance, there is the Mission Parivar Vikas, which focuses on 146 of the most backward, high fertility states with a lot of incentives, with a lot of investments in, empowering women by working with their mother-in-laws, the husbands, the partners, to try and get women access to family planning services. Second, I have to say that the government of India made a commitment in 2012 at the global meeting on family planning and women's health, where the government of India made two global commitments, spending additional money, but also reaching out to 48 million additional women. Third, government has signed the SDGs, which Mr. Buj has been referring to, and we are committed to the Sustainable Development Goals. I believe Government of India is serious.
Ms. Matreja, thank you so much. To wrap up our discussion, I'd like to take my final question to Dr. Buj. Now, India's population right now is 1.37 billion and counting. So what should the roadmap be for the next decade and even the next 50 years?
Yes, Priyanka. In fact, a lot of documents, both by the United Nations and our own family planning policy document, talk about a roadmap. We are implementing a project Aakar in 2 districts. Of course, we are going to reach out to 5 more districts where total fertility rates are high, and we are trying to implement these measures, providing the facilities, incentives, promotions, livelihood and reproductive health facilitation that we are doing on ground. And of course, education and advocacy, counseling at the grassroots level. These are some of the measures that we are already doing. The other thing, policy measure, is about urbanization, which is spreading like migration from rural to urban. And it's creating problems to sustainability, environment, as well as population as well. So all these issues need to be tackled in a very meaningful and effective manner. And I think that is what should be the roadmap.
Absolutely. Just before we wrap up, Mr. Gaur, I'd like to get a reaction from you. What does India need to do to tackle the issue of population explosion in the next few decades?
इंडिया आईसीपीडी में सिग्नेटरी है, लेकिन अगर आप आईसीपीडी का कोई क्लोजिंग स्टेटमेंट को पढ़ेंगे तो वो साफ तौर पे मेंशन करता है कि कोई भी कंट्री अपने लिए अपनी पॉपुलेशन पॉलिसी अपने हिसाब से डिसाइड करने के लिए फ्री है, वो इससे बाउंड नहीं है, लेकिन कोरेसिव मेथड्स को दूर रखते हुए.
Right. And with that, we wrap up this interesting and informative discussion. As our esteemed panelists have pointed out, awareness and government-enabled schemes will be crucial in stabilizing India's population. I'd like now to thank all our panelists for joining us today and sharing their views and insights. Thanks for joining us on this unique campaign with me, Priyanka Sharma. And coming up after the break is another intriguing panel discussion.
WION now available in the United States. Download the app now. WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, Russia, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
From the world's most volatile region, conflicts over faith and boundaries. Stories of death, destruction, despair, and hope. WION brings you to the heart of the action. Incisive analysis, unrivaled perspective, and exclusive ground reports. Watch West Asia Post every Friday, 8:30 p.m. IST with me, Radi Francis. Only on WION, World is One.
I was born in Afghanistan. The Soviet invasion forced my family to migrate to Pakistan before moving to the United States. South Asia is home. Here, in the streets, on platforms like these, I am most comfortable. I'm in the studios of WION to bring to you the region's heartbeat. On South Asia Diary, you will hear voices from the world's most underreported region. We will talk culture, we will talk politics, we will talk creative innovations. This is South Asia, home to 1.9 billion people. And this is South Asia Diary with me, Mariam Wardak. Every Monday, 8:30 p.m. IST, on WION, World is One.
The November election is a crucial test for the country's first democratic government. Myanmar could be on the verge of a coup. The country's powerful military generals are threatening to take action against what they call a fraudulent election. Myanmar's de facto leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, is in detention. Our response team was flooded with messages. The coup has destroyed our youth's dreams and future. We want democracy and want our country to develop. #Save Myanmar.
I was born in Afghanistan. The Soviet invasion forced my family to migrate to Pakistan before moving to the United States. South Asia is home. Here, in the streets, on platforms like these, I am most comfortable. I'm in the studios of WION to bring to you the region's heartbeat. On South Asia Diary, you will hear voices from the world's most underreported region. We will talk culture, we will talk politics, we will talk creative innovations. This is South Asia, home to 1.9 billion people. And this is South Asia Diary with me, Mariam Wardak. Every Monday, 8:30 p.m. IST, on WION, World is One.
Sharma Upadhyay, and you're watching Mission Sustainability, Population versus Planet, a thought leadership conclave by WION in partnership with the Mobius Foundation. The total world population crossed the threshold of 1 billion people for the first time in history at the beginning of the 19th century. Now there are 7.8 billion of us on the planet. And the human race is using up the Earth's resources faster than ever before. How can this booming population be stabilized? The relationship between population and education has attracted the attention of both scholars and governments for decades. Looking at the figures for India in particular, 33.6% of the population is born of adolescent pregnancies. Just delaying the onset of childbearing could reduce India's projected 2050 population of 1.7 billion by more than a quarter. But why is there not enough education and general awareness about this? What are the challenges that India faces? To understand this issue, we have with us a very special panel today. Dr. Ram Bhuj, CEO of the Mobius Foundation, Professor K.S. James, Director of International Institute for Population Sciences, Karthikeya Sarabhai, Director, Center for Environment Education, and Saroj Yadav, former Dean Academic, NCERT. Hello and welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Dr. Bhuj, population explosion is a subject that we grew up writing essays about in school, and yet we are here discussing it again today. Do you feel that there is still a lack of education and awareness about this issue, and that is the root cause of India's growing numbers?
Thank you so much, Balki, and our fellow panelists. Welcome to this very exciting educational campaign, Population versus Planet. In fact, it's a fact that the education is the key to population stabilization as well as the planetary sustainability. We all know that in areas where there is a high literacy rate, higher education, there is less children. Where there is almost 50 to 60% female literacy, in those areas almost the total fertility rate, that replacement rate, is around 1.7 to 1.8%. In other areas where the literacy rate is lower, the fertility rate is higher, close to 3 per population. So that is the trend which is everywhere, in every state, in every part of the world also. The other factor which is very important is lack of education, and that too on the population matters: sexuality, reproductive behavior, attitudes, cultural and social values. All these shape the size of the family. In India, unfortunately, this has always been a controversial subject. Family education or the sex education, what we call population education, has been a controversial subject. There have been attempts to introduce into the curriculum, but somehow these have not been favored to a great extent. Our national education policy also just pays very little attention towards that. Of course, we are happy to know that our Prime Minister, when he spoke from the ramparts of the Red Fort in 2019 on Independence Day, he emphasized on the role of smaller families, and he said that population control is akin to patriotism. And another tribute we must give to our Prime Minister is that in 2018 he launched a teachers training module which is activity based on family planning or healthy living under the Ayushman Bharat scheme. And this training module is being implemented in all government schools of the country. And this is really very encouraging.
Kartikeya Sarabhai, how do you see the link between education and the problem of population that India is facing? Also, when we talk about the participation of the entire population, do you believe that there needs to be a special drive for equal participation from men in family planning? And I'm looking at some numbers. Female sterilization continues to be the preferred mode of family planning among Indian couples between the ages of 15 and 49, with 36% of the couples opting for it. Male sterilization, on the contrary, is an option used by only 0.3% of couples.
Thank you, Palki. As you rightly say, the population increase during this last century, where we are increasing by 1 billion people every 12 or 13 years, is something which just makes the entire planet completely unsustainable. And India, with this young population, is particularly contributing to what the whole world scene is. So what we do really impacts others. The connection between education and population is very clear, especially female education. And so it's not necessarily education about population control or family planning, it's just education per se. So I think that is something which is a goal, and the faster we do it, we see the dividends of it. But in addition, the type of point which you just now made, that there is a lot of stigma to male population control measures and others. And I think this can only go through a major campaign with people understanding what happens when sterilization happens or something. Does it change their character? There is this whole feeling of masculinity and what happens with that. You have to also think in terms of women marrying later. Our laws already provide for that. But my feeling has been that if with education, there can also be some earning possibilities, so that the girl child in the family starts becoming not seen as something which is not earning, or how do you keep them later. But it's a complex issue. But education is the key to this population. One of the reasons why we had a setback earlier on is when we pushed population per se rather than education for population.
Right. Saroj Yadav, the government of India has done a lot. Successive governments have made an effort to deal with this. The Indian government, the current government, has expressed a strong commitment towards education for all. But India still has one of the lowest female literacy rates in Asia. Why does this gender disparity in education continue to exist in this country, and what bearing, according to you, this has on population growth?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me for this debate. Education definitely plays a very important role, because India is the first country to start family planning programs. But because in family planning programs, we're focusing more on IC activities, whereas the role of education is very important, because demographic change or demographic profile of the country depend largely on the attitudes and behavior of the people. In India, particularly because there is in the earlier period, there was a lack of education. And particularly education means not only mere literacy, but education means that they must be able to understand the implications of the relationship between family size and the family welfare. The number of, you can say, negative attitude of parents is one of the reasons they think girl child is not a very, you can say, economically viable. They will go to the another family after marriage, so they don't want to spend on the girl child. Therefore, changing of the attitudes of the parents is also very important, irrespective of the fact that we have Right to Education Act, we have Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, because the you can say education is free. But even irrespective of the education is free, the negative attitude of the parents, the poverty is also one of the reasons, the accessibility sometime of the school, the lack of adequate facilities. And there is a regional variations also. So these are some of the factors, and the government is trying its level best, because education has two roles as a key factor, because even if those who are educated, they will play an important role. And if we promote, you can say, issues related to population through education, that will also double our, you can say, objectives.
Right. I think you need a holistic approach, because if you educate today's young, then they will become parents who are educated tomorrow. And I think it will have a domino effect. Professor James, you've been patiently listening to everyone else. Let me come to you now. The International Institute for Population Sciences is the national nodal agency for the National Family Health Survey. And you've been doing some great work in this field. Can you please share some of the important findings about population stabilization and India's challenges from phase 1 of your Survey 5?
Yeah, thank you. I think if I summarize the major findings from the phase 1 survey of the National Family Health Survey, I can say there are 3 points. One thing which is very clear from the survey is that there has been substantial progress in the population front and also in the health front over the last few years. There is no, undoubtedly, India has progressed substantially over the last, you can say, 5 years in this regard, and all the health indicators has improved, and even the fertility rate, which we have been really worried in the past, perhaps 2 decades back, now it is in the replacement level. So that is perhaps the first important message which is coming from the survey. And the second, perhaps, is the extreme heterogeneity which is existing in the country. Although we say, okay, there is a population is stabilizing in the country, the stabilizing in terms of the replacement level fertility, that is 2.1, which we demographers usually consider. But at the same time, there is substantial variation across states in the country. So we have also a fertility level of 3 and above in some parts, and also even much less than 2.1, or even much less than 1.5, even some other parts of the country. So we also have an extreme heterogeneity in the country, which is also needs to take into consideration. So since you have been also discussing more keenly on the education aspects, let me also tell 1 or 2 points on that. India is also giving so much of fascinating results in respect of relationship between education and fertility as well. Because if you look at fertility level in some parts of the country, especially in the south, among the illiterate, that is also less than replacement level. Is if you take, for instance, Tamil Nadu, if you take, for instance, Andhra Pradesh or Telangana state, you can see even uneducated has a much less level of fertility compared to educated. So in northern part, even in the educated, you will say slightly higher fertility, even above replacement level. It's not purely the education we measure in terms of the school education or the college education, etc., in terms of the stock as the education as a stock. But it is the information that matters. Actually, information can be given in varieties of ways. Media is one source of information. There can be other ways you can really convey the messages, which is important, which my previous speaker has told, especially in the 1994, after the Cairo conference, as well as the RCH initiative. It's important that the women's empowerment issues, the right attitude towards the education, especially the health education, etc., is imparted upon through various means rather than the purely thinking in terms of the formal education as such. I think that's perhaps the best way for the country to move forward.
Right. Dr. Bhuj, I think everyone here will agree that the first step towards mitigating a crisis is to start talking about it. And that perhaps is the biggest hurdle when we consider the case of India. There's a stigma, there's a taboo, conversations of a sexual nature. How do we overcome this hurdle to achieve everything else that we've been discussing here?
Many of these population problems are related to these deeply embedded cultural values, to a certain extent, traditions, preference for male child. That's a major issue, and this results in skewed sex ratio, as well as, of course, the female feticide, infanticide, many of the evils. The other thing is like a taboo regarding the contraceptives. the whole focus of the family planning in India has been female sterilization. Male sterilization, male contraceptive use is very rare. Figures say that. And that is another aspect that need to be tackled. Girls' education, if we talk about empowerment and decision making, particularly about the choices, is very much limited. That is, we are trying to implement a project Aakar, which is to shape the values, attitudes and sensitivities of the families towards this population stabilization, and this project is being implemented in 2 districts on a pilot basis since 2018 in Barabanki and Bahraich districts in 200 villages and 27 blocks.
I want to bring in Professor James here, and I'm looking at figures again. You were talking about the role that gender inequality also plays in population. According to a National Family Health Survey, if a woman studies for 12 years or more, she has an average of 2.01 children, compared to 2.2 for all women and 3.82 for women with no education. These figures are telling. What are your thoughts on this?
That is the enormity in the case of India, because there is a diversity in India which is remarkable, which is unexpected for any other parts of the world even. Because we have a situation where if we look at our age, we see that uneducated has higher fertility in every place. But that is but the uneducated, similar uneducated who lives in the southern part of the country has much less fertility level, even much below replacement level fertility. Imparting knowledge, imparting the ideas there can be several means to it. I think that is why some places in the country is successful, in some other places in the country is not successful. There are also problems with sex ratio, which some of the speakers have already mentioned, that in some parts, this low fertility is also leading to sex ratio imbalance. So this is overall, I think what we see at the aggregate may not be true in the different parts of the country. So what we need is an approach which is specific to specific regions, specific to specific communities, which is because we need to really study them much more closely. That is why the National Family Health is, if you look at, earlier it was only a state level survey. Now it has gone to a district level survey because we give district level estimates so that we know we also actually capture the enormity of the problems in the country, not actually at the aggregate level.
Right. Saroj Yadav, very quickly I want to ask you, India has the largest adolescent population in the world, 253 million. Every 5th person is between 10 to 19 years of age. Are schools, according to you, doing enough to teach them about population growth?
We are integrating the content of population-related issues, even about, you can say, responsible sexual behavior in our curriculum and textbooks. Already we have prepared training materials. The country is implementing one very huge program, training all, you can say, upper primary teachers, up to upper primary teachers through NISTA. So NCERT is implementing that program, and in that program there's one module to train all the teachers. Secondly, we are adopting an experiential learning approach, means how to involve the children into a participatory mode so that just getting information is not enough. We want to change their attitudes and behavior, and therefore we are through activities like role play, case studies, or you can say value clarification approach, because the values, the beliefs are playing more important role, as somebody said, the son preference. Because irrespective of the fact they want small family, but they want to have son, and that has resulted in lower sex ratio. So we want to integrate all these content in the curriculum so that it reaches to the teachers. Advocacy is very important, as he has rightly said, because in southern part, the whole ambience has been built in such a way that they have smaller families. But states like Uttar Pradesh, like Bihar, like Rajasthan, these states really need advocacy, where we have to involve not only the parents but the community, the religious leaders, which can play a very important role. We have already prepared the training materials, so training of teachers and other functionaries, we have to have strong, you can say, monitoring mechanism. Then only we will reach that whether those things which have been prepared are really reaching to those people. The material need to be translated into their own language, because that is very, very important. For the first time, the two ministries, the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, they are working together so that the education ministry is able to, you can say, provide them age appropriate information and knowledge, and the health ministry is able to provide them services. Under the health ministry, they are providing, you can say, iron folic acid, the iron folic tablets, and then you can say about sanitary napkins, adolescent friendly health clinics, the counseling issues are also being taken care of. So both the ministries have started working together, prepared the material, trained the teachers. So these are some of the things is very, very important. And I think the another issue which is very important is to educate more boys, because some of the, you can say, abuses are occurring in our country. And if we are able to educate our boys and men, that is very, very important.
Right. Kartikeya Sarabhai, after having talked to all of you, it is very clear that we have a thorough understanding of the subject in India. We also have a committed leadership that wants to address the situation. We also have many schemes, and yet we continue to face this problem. Where have we gone wrong as a country, and what is the way forward?
I think it's not a question of going wrong as much as saying that we would like to go much faster. And that fastness does require education to play a key and very important role. The simple fact that the sex of the child is determined by the father and not by the mother. The amount of women who are almost sort of beaten up at times because they don't deliver a boy to the family. Now, these things have to change. I think what Professor James said was very encouraging, that in Andhra Pradesh and in Telangana, even people who are not formally educated, but through an effective awareness campaign, are also bringing down fertility rate at the same speed as educated. I think this has to be done. I think on the one hand, the campaign to formally educate everyone is on and needs to be absolutely followed through. But you must remember that because we are talking about culture and behavioral change, these values really happen at childhood. And I think if we start at the school and see that every child who now goes into adulthood has got these key values, understands sexual education, understands what the importance of boys and girls are in society, then I think we made a huge start. So I think while we are doing a lot of things, we need to do something more. So overall, I think society would be much, much better if we really appreciate the role of women, and it will not only impact population, but it will impact growth in all areas, and it will have better citizen participation.
Right, I couldn't agree more. Dr. Bhuj, Professor James, Kartikeya Sarabhai, Saroj Yadav, thank you very much. We're out of time, but thank you for sharing your thoughts with us here. And for our viewers, you've heard the experts speak. Countries with better educated citizens tend to have a healthier population and decreased fertility rates. A more educated workforce also makes poverty eradication and economic growth easier to achieve. And it all begins with educating and empowering our youth to make better choices. With that, we come to the end of this session. I would now like to invite Mr. Amitabh Kant, CEO of Niti Aayog, to share with us his vision for population stabilization.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the population explosion is a burning issue before every nation of the world. It is also a global problem as well as an economic problem and a social problem. Prime Minister, on the occasion of the 73rd Independence Day, spoke on the need for population control during his Independence Day speech from the ramparts of Red Fort. He said, there is a greater need for discussion and awareness on the population explosion. Population explosion, he said, will cause many problems for our future generations. But there is a vigilant section of the public that stops to think before bringing a child to the world, whether they can do justice to the child, give them all that she or he wants. They have a small family and express their patriotism to the country. Let's learn from them. There is a need for social awareness, unquote. India launched its family planning program in 1951 as part of the first 5-year plan and became the first country in the world to have a state-sponsored population program. There was not much progress for the next 10 years. The program got a tremendous boost with the creation of a separate Department of Family Planning in the Health Ministry in 1966. family planning got the importance in all subsequent 5-year plans. In the year 2000, India developed a national population policy which provided a policy framework for advancing goals and prioritizing strategies during the next decade to meet the reproductive and child health needs of the people of India and to achieve net replacement levels, which is otherwise called reduced total fertility rate by 2010. The National Health Policy 2017 recognizes that improved access, education and empowerment would be the basis of successful population stabilization. The policy imperative is to move away from camp-based services with all its attendant problems of quality, safety and dignity of women to a situation where these services are available on any day of the week or at least on a fixed day. Other policy imperatives are to increase the proportion of male sterilization from less than 5% currently to at least 30% and if possible much higher. In 1950-51, India's population was 361 million. According to the 2011 census, it was 1,210 million. Our population has been growing at the rate of 2.2% per annum since independence. We have reached 137 billion in 2020. Population scientists have postulated a threshold to the number of births to keep the population under control. This is expressed as the total fertility rate, which is the average number of children of women of childbearing age must have. Population above TFR means growth, while that below TFR means a decline. At TFR, the population is maintained. A 2.1 TFR would keep the country's population stable. The number accounts for 1 child per mother, 1 per father, and an extra 0.1 for children who die in infancy and women who die before childbearing age. The UN Population Division terms this as the replacement level fertility. India is very close to this point now, for as many as 21 states have TFR below 2.1. Family planning is considered universally as the smartest development investment. For India to realize its sustainable development goals and economic aspirations, it is important to ensure that people have informed access to contraception and quality family planning services. Keeping this in mind, Niti Aayog has initiated discussions for developing a working paper for increasing the basket of contraceptive choices with a greater focus on spacing methods and helping women make informed choices about delaying pregnancy and spacing between children. Addressing social determinants of health such as age at marriage and sex-selective practices. Strengthening the quality of care, including counseling services, managing side effects and family planning support. And increasing budgetary allocations for family planning to align with the unmet needs of India's young population, who constitute nearly 30% of our population. The government is taking several steps to sensitize people and generate awareness of the need for population control. Education empowers women and girls to plan their lives. Not only are educated women better equipped to understand their reproductive health options, but they have greater social and economic opportunities that leads them to have smaller families. Studies have shown that literacy, especially reading comprehension, profoundly impacts family size. It is very important that women empowerment should allow them to exercise their fundamental right to choose the number of children they will have, when and with whom. We need empowering actions that give girls and women the ability to exercise their rights, as Prime Minister vision and aim to do through the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao campaign. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Kant. I think the discussions today have been extremely meaningful. Sustainability efforts must take the expanding human population footprint into consideration, and we cannot have a sustainable planet without stabilizing the world's population. And we can tell you this conclave was just the beginning. In the coming months, we'll keep bringing you powerful documentaries on mission sustainability, population versus planet. Thank you for watching.